The girl abandoned her young son in a minefield and tied him to a tree trunk with a rope. Then she walked away without looking back, leaving behind the poor blind child, who called out for his mother in sorrow. The girl's name was Yagri. She had just come of age. The blind child was a mark of her shame. 3 years earlier, the war had claimed the lives of Yagri's parents, and the US military had burned down their home. That very night, a group of soldiers targeted her. Yagri's brother, who had lost both arms, tried to stop them but was powerless. 3 years later, Yagri and her brother appeared in a refugee camp in Iraq. The camp was filled with countless homeless orphans. To survive, they had no choice but to collect landmines from the fields and sell them cheaply to arms dealers in exchange for food. They had no knowledge of demon and relied entirely on luck to avoid being blown up. By now, a 2-year-old child had appeared by Yagri's side. This child was the result of the soldiers' assault on Yagri. Fortunately, a boy named Jacob in the camp looked after them. Whenever they ran into trouble, they would often seek Jacob's help. But life in the camp was constantly under threat due to the ongoing, intense war. US airstrikes came unpredictably and frequently. They always had to be ready to flee at a moment's notice. Yagri gazed at her young son, lost in thought. Raising this child forced her to confront the shame etched into her life. Under such pressure, Yagri bore a grief far beyond her years. That night, Yagri and her brother argued about whether they should leave the camp. Their food supplies were running low, and nearby landmines had already been dug up by other refugees. If they stayed, they would either starve or be killed by an explosion. Yagri suggested abandoning the child, believing it would make their escape easier. But her brother refused to leave his nephew behind. At first light, while her brother slept, Yagri took her son and left him in the minefield behind the camp. 2 hours later, a boy from the camp found the child and told Jacob what had happened. Jacob immediately gathered a group of orphans and ran to the scene. When they arrived, they saw the child had freed himself from the ropes and was wandering in the minefield. Jacob panicked and urgently tried to stop him. Jacob was severely injured in the process. That night, as Yagri watched her son return again, she fell into deep contemplation. Meanwhile, a portrait of the Iraqi leader had been destroyed by the US military, prompting refugees throughout the camp to flee. Her brother awoke from a nightmare, sensing that something was wrong. He ran out crying, searching for his sister. The night before, Yagri had tied her son to a rock and thrown him into the river, then gone to the cliff herself. When Goff, guided by instinct, reached the river, he found only the body of his nephew in the water. Grief-stricken, he went to the cliff where his sister often sat lost in thought. He shouted her name with all his might, but the only answer was the distant roar of war.